listen, never in my life associated the word boring with baseball.
We know what's up.
Me? Yeah. Famous? Yeah.
And I'm like giddy over there smiling like, we're about to win this shit.
Did everyone give you crap? Give me a good host story.
I'm not picking it up.
We both love the game.
We talk about it every day.
Get on baseball.
Having some popcorn, you're fooling around your phone.
I'd have to wait in line for 3 hours.
Hang on, because it's about to be a wild ride.
One of my good friends, Brent Warren, he's actually an agent for Tidal Sports Group. And Brent isn't the type of guy that talks about himself a lot. So I will, so me on background, me and Brent known each other since around 10th grade. And Brent was actually, he won't tell you, but he was actually at one point the number 1 baseball player in the country. You were by the rankings, by the perfect game rankings. You were. He underwent, heart surgery. Great story. Underwent, heart surgery.
Hey, Julian, I was actually curious. Did we play together? Because we met. Did. So we met on Team Connecticut, right?
Yeah.
But did we play together before my heart surgery?
Before your heart surgery?
It was before. It was right before. I think it was
right before
the Jupiter tournament. Right before I found out that I was basically walking dead at one point. Yeah.
Yeah. So. Yeah. You could say that, not me. But but no. So, but in all seriousness, he was one of the top players in the country. And the way I describe him was, he was Cody. If you look at Cody Bellinger, that was Brent Warren. He's probably the most athletic white guy I've ever been around, hands down. Got drafted.
I'll take that compliment.
Got drafted by the Oakland A's out of high school, Oregon State. Then went on to play NAIA school, then sort of got into the agency business. And it's great to see him here, and have this sort of full circle moment, because obviously our dads are friends, and we know the investment that they took with us to have us, play baseball, traveling us to tournaments. And, though the ball's kind of stopped, we stopped throwing the ball, we're still throwing it in some way. So it's great to have you on this podcast, man.
No, I really appreciate it. And I'd be curious if, your audience knows your background. I mean, you were smooth in the infield. Have you talked about your playing carear at all, or
a little bit?
Got into where you're at?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Ohio University. It's crazy. It's the similar thing.
It's a really similar story.
We were both sucking in that tournament too, and that's kind of how we got close. It was we were 1 for 11 with 8 strikeouts, and I'm like, dude, I remember sitting on the bench I don't know what's going on. You're like, I don't know what's going on either. And
but probably a bit of the canary in the coal mine, if you will, could do a lot of things you would think that would make a baseball player good, but really struggled at actually playing baseball, making contact, getting on base.
Yeah.
Those little things that actually matter. Yeah.
Exactly. So when you sort of made that transition to wanting to be an agent, and obviously, you represent Mitch Keller is one of the guys that you represent for the Pirates. You got that deal done last year. Congratulations, my man. When you made that transition to the agency side of things, did you know that that's what you wanted? Was that always what you wanted to do when you were at finishing up college?
No, honestly, no. It's always in the back of your head of wanting to be an agent. It's a cool concept to think about, but I think we've known each other for so long. We both probably hated baseball for a while.
Yeah.
And there's a period of time in your life, particularly mine, where I kind of wanted to get away from baseball for a while. So I actually went to law school, did that whole thing. I actually practiced for a few years before I became an agent. I just did corporate law work, transactional stuff, a bunch of contracts, and it was not exactly exciting. But I got a little bit lucky. I got pulled into it. I got offered this job by my partner, Brody Schofield. He was starting this agency called Tidal Sports Group. And I mean, baseball just has a way. I mean, I don't know the famous quote or whatever, but like it just kind of sucks you back in. Like it's really hard to get away from. And once that opportunity presented itself, it was two parts. One was like, hell yeah, of course I want to be around the game again. But also for me, I remember at the time I was sitting in my law office, and like across the hallway was one of the partners at the law firm. And I got the offer for this job, and the salary was a substantial discount than what I was making as an attorney. And I just remember like the partner at the law firm, like he just got off a call with a big client. He was just like banging his phone on the work desk, just cursing, and I was like, yeah, I'll take the job. I'm good. Like I want to get out of this. Like being in an office every day was tough, especially for like former athletes where like we're so used to
moving.
Yeah.
Like you need that movement where it's like, because I mean, I did the same. I was in the office. I actually worked at the MLB office for a little bit before I got into journalism, and I was just like as an intern, and I was just sitting at the desk the entire day, and I mean, I was getting like depressed, like. You know, you're not even. Sometimes you don't go out for lunch, and you probably didn't go out for lunch because you're a corporate attorney. So it's like
billable hours, baby. You got to get those hours. Yeah,
we need that vitamin D. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you need to be outside. Like, we're outside people.
So actually, I think this is something really. I don't know how to like say this exactly, but if I talk to players who are maybe exiting sports, like kind of entering that next stage in their life, I think it's really important where they understand. I don't know. Kids are still told this, like, hey, sports are going to make you a man. It translates into the real world. Some of that is very much true. Some of it is not. Like,
absolutely.
As an athlete, your energy levels are like this. I mean, you have really big games, and then you're done playing. You have time off, and like, you know, weights in the morning are super important. Then you're kind of done. Games are super important. So it's like super intense, dip down into just chilling. The real world, if you will, is very much just like every single day, 12 to 14 hours a day, a constant buzz. And I think athletes, we're so used to like kind of chasing that victory, that high of like, you know, a new personal accomplishment, team accomplishment, where the real world is like, bro, you're just keeping your head above water. Like you're just trying to survive. So I think it's something like, if I talk to current athletes or, you know, making that next transition, it's like, hey, you just got to be ready. Like when you talk about grind, lifting weights at 6 o'clock in the morning 3 times a week is not that bad. Like it's actually pretty good for you, but then insert a 12-hour day sitting at a desk, and that can be a bit more of a grind than you would expect. So it's
100%. It's like, you know, athletes are kind of like adrenaline junkies. And I think
totally. Yeah. Absolutely. Competition junkies. Yeah.
Yeah. For the longest, like it's for me, it was hard to find something that got my adrenaline moving. Yeah. And then I got into journalism, and the best thing I can, you know, describe it as is like, for me, it's like this adrenaline rush for me, because what makes it that for me is the deadline, right? Having the deadline, having something set.
I could see that. Yeah, I never really thought about that. Yeah,
this is due by 12 a.m. I don't care.
And that's that
what's
peak
going on.
Yeah,
I don't care if it went to extra innings. I don't care about anything. We have to make this deadline. This is a drop dead deadline. And yes, we might be able, if it's a playoffs or World Series, sure, we'll extend that deadline. But if it's not in by 12, like, you're screwed. Yeah. And so like having that sort of I guess success failure thing and not anything in between is sort of something that kept me going. And I think probably comes from, you know, baseball. Either you get on base or you don't, right? Yeah. Like either you make the play or you don't. You know, there's really no in between with that. So
there's that intense moment of focus where it's like, you have to get this done.
100%.
You got to move the runner over. You got to get a hit here. Can't walk this guy, whatever it may be. Like, I could totally see like meeting those deadlines, kind of getting that same emotional rush. So I get that.
No doubt. So as you made that transition, but to just kind of backtrack a little bit.
Yeah.
When did you know that, hey, like baseball's done? I can't do this anymore, or it's not going to happen?
Probably my like sophomore year of college, honestly.
At Oregon State?
Yeah. And it was more so, I just realized like, and this is after my heart surgery, okay, there is a intensity level of which you have to get into as a professional athlete. We've all seen it. I'm sure you see it in, you know, when you're talking to these guys pre-post game, like in order to compete at the highest level, you have to have like a bit of maniac in you and a bit of irrational exuberance in your own skill set. And man, I was just kind of chilling. Like, I was just happy to be there. I was like, this is cool. Like, I'm really excited to be here. I want to win, but like, I'm really just kind of taking this all in. And I did not have that extra level of, hey man, do one more set at the squat rack. Hey, you got to dive for this baseball. Just that extra level of like competitiveness, if you will. I just kind of lost that in a way. Yeah. And it was more so like, hey, I know what a freaking blessing it is to play this game with friends. And I was just kind of a little bit more focused on that, honestly. Yeah. So I knew pretty soon. And that's why I transferred and ended up, I actually went to the same school that Stephen Vogt played at, Azusa Pacific.
You guys didn't cross paths, did you?
Do what?
You guys didn't cross paths. I mean, a bit older than us, right?
Yeah, he's older. I think he got drafted like 2 years before I came in, maybe just 1 year. Okay. Yeah. Shout out to Coach Svadgis. He's the head coach at Westmont University in California now. He's a great guy. Yeah. So if any kids are out there and Paul's giving you a shout, like, listen to him. He's a good dude.
Yeah. We can. I mean, me and you can talk for days, like about this in colleges and everything like that.
Totally different landscape now, by the way.
Yeah, way different. You know, they have all the technology and stuff like that. So I started off at Ohio University, and you started off at Oregon State. And a lot of times I think like, hey, like if we had went somewhere else, right? Because I didn't like my coach at all. I know you had issues with your coach at Oregon State and how he tried to change your game a little bit, like that, to that cookie cutter sort of old school college game. But a lot of times I think it's about fit, right? Yeah. And you see a lot of guys, you know, I'm watching the Deion Sanders and looking at his son and his son going to whatever is going to get drafted, and the other guy, Travis Hunter. And he's saying like, he's putting on like the Eli Manning effect where it's like, yeah, he's not going to this team or this team, but this team can draft him. And I think that's so important because if you're not in the right position, in the right fit, it doesn't, a lot of times you're done. Just there. And you see a lot. That's why you see a lot of number one picks in basketball who go to these bad teams, these bad organizations. You know, you're seeing it. Caleb Williams go through that now with the Chicago Bears. That's a good comp. So it's a lot of times. I'm curious. Do you think that competitive edge that you had would have existed a little bit more, and you would have had that extra, you know, rep in you at the squat rack had you had a different experience from the beginning?
Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe.
I think most importantly for, you know, anyone else going through the process right now of like choosing a school or going pro or going to college, and obviously like the dynamics of making that decision are so much different now because you can make money in college, which is awesome. Like, so it would make the decision a little bit easier. But I think the biggest thing is just making sure, you know, I did a bad job of this. I mean, I was just a little kid from Iowa, so I had no idea, but like making sure you need to improve in college, obviously, like you have to get better, but you also need to make sure, I would tell any kid, like, make sure your playing style fits the organization that you're going to. So if you are like maybe a little bit more of a strikeout power guy, and you're going to an organization where the first move they're going to do is like, hey, we're going to teach you to bunt and hit the ball on the ground. Yeah. Probably not the best fit, because even you could be really good at your job, but if like what they're looking for is walks and like moving runners over, you just simply may not fit that school. So I think I think I'm answering your question, but I think that's like the number one thing that I probably missed out on, didn't pay enough attention to. And what I think most kids right now really should pay attention to. Not necessarily like every school is going to say they develop, but it's are they going to develop this skill set that you actually can turn into, right? And if you're a speed guy, if you're a small ball guy, like, and you want to go to, and you're trying to go to a school where they just want you to hit pumps out of the stadium, like probably not a good fit either.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I would agree with you. Yeah, I just think that's really important.
So if Brent Warren has a son and is walking into University of Alabama, and it's like, hey, they're showing you.
He ain't going to Alabama.
Okay. All right. So he goes to UCLA. We'll say UCLA.
Yeah.
Gets a scholarship. He has a scholarship offer to UCLA. Official visit. They're showing him this, showing that. You know how the whole thing goes. They show you everything. Bring out the book and all this stuff of here's how many people graduate. Here's what we do. Yada yada yada. What's the first question you're going to ask the coach about your son's quote unquote fit?
Yeah, I want to understand exactly who else is coming into the organization, the program, which is probably my own research that I'm going to do. But I also want like a legitimate plan of how will you make my son better at playing baseball? And I don't want examples of like, that if you're a pitcher and you're going to UCLA, like, so I played against Garrett Cole when I was at Oregon State. I actually played with him a little bit.
You played with him in Jupiter.
Yeah.
Him and Hosmer for the for the what was that? The Brave Scout? What was that team? Brave Scout team?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
I remember that night he was throwing like 98 in the rain. It was crazy. It was with like sync.
Yeah, I mean
it was crazy.
Yeah, I'm asking. But I don't want that. I don't want a coach being like, hey, come to our school because look at Garrett Cole. He came to college and was the first overall. Dude, Garrett Cole's a freak. Like, he has talent levels more so than any of us have. And I'm not like trying to discredit any sort of work ethic he has, but it's just show me a player that is like maybe didn't come in with like the best skill set and what you specifically did to turn him into a better player, and then apply that to my son. Like, I want an actual, doesn't need to be like extremely specific, but I want them to know like, hey, here's what your son does well. Here's what he does, what we think poorly. And here's how we're going to make him a better player. And here's how he will fit in on our team. Like, I feel like especially in the industry that I am in now, pretty good at coach speak, especially in like the recruitment world. And I feel like I could see through that a little bit, and I would just try to avoid stuff like that. You know, you don't want to be like, to all the parents out there, like, you don't want to be too annoying to college coaches. Like, they got a job to do. Yeah. But yeah, I would just want to hear something a little bit more specific.
Yeah. My dad always says that he goes back to he says, you know what, when I was in that room, I should have asked, because they're talking about the players that, this guy did this guy did that. Yeah. My dad was saying, I should have asked them. And this will be something that I'll ask of my child, if they want to play sports and and lucky enough to get a scholarship or going on an official visit, is like, what's a player that it didn't work out for? You're telling me everybody it did work out for, but tell me one that you guys screwed up, and how and why. Yeah, because you go to these programs and you see so many kids that go in with talent that just fall by the wayside. You just really never hear about them again. So tell me about the kid that didn't work out. And so, I think that's pretty interesting. Like how you're saying you want to pinpoint those things, which brings me to the point that I want to make about the way you agent, because the conversation we had about you as an agent, a lot of the things that you're saying that you would say to the coach is sometimes I think some of the things that you say to your clients as well is like, look, here's what you do well. Here's what you don't do well. Here's your market value. Here's what we think we can get you. Yeah. How did you get to that point where you're comfortable, telling the player that, obviously, and then also like putting yourself, having the confidence of being able to say, hey, this is what you do well, this is what you don't do well. Is it your eye metric, or is it the metrics that you're looking at? Is your experience? What is it?
It's everything. And it's definitely in consultation with my partner, Brody, as well. I mean, I guess if I'm talking to a player, client, potential recruit, whoever it is, like we have a particular set of values that we have at our agency, and we just I try to like operationalize those values through our systems and through our structure, and just try to communicate that as best as I can to any sort of recruit. Our systems we want to get the best information that we can to a client or to a recruit so that they can make the best decision that they can for some of the biggest decisions that they have in their life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one thing for me, I know it was just the draft, but like I never felt like it's not just the draft is very important, but like I never really felt like I got fully educated on that, or like what the decision I was making, like how big of a deal it was to say no to like a lot of money out of high school.
Mm-hmm.
So just making sure like our clients and our recruits have the best information as possible. And then our structure really allows for those systems, because we are an objectively small agency. Like I'm never going to hide that.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I do think we are unique in the fact that, we have experiences doing really big deals. Brody and I worked with Kevin Gossman during his path from Atlanta to Baltimore to San Francisco to Cincinnati. I think he got like DFA'd from Cincinnati, and then to San Francisco, and then on to Toronto. And then obviously, Mitch Keller's experience and his extension. And so, I'm not particularly sure. I think where we're unique is, hey, we have an exceptionally small client list, and I want to make sure every recruit and client understands that, our goal is to represent you with the best information possible. And we're not just kind of like a recruiting factory, because I felt like I got caught up in that a little bit. So I'm always trying to like check my ego, put it to the side as much as I can, be like, hey, these are just unbelievably important decisions that these players need to make, and they just need to have like the best information that they can. It just kind of needs to be easy for them to understand it. And so, yeah, like that's our goal 24/7 is I'm constantly trying to make sure that I understand like whatever, idiosyncratic market dynamics that a particular player has at a particular time, whether it's arbitration or potential extension or saying no to an extension to go to free agency, that my player or potential recruit like really understands like all of those dynamics. So, yeah.
For sure. I remember last year when you came to Boston, I mentioned that I was like, one of my cousins, he's getting he's probably going to get drafted. And you were like, oh, okay, cool. That's great. And I was like, yeah, he might be looking for some representation. So on and so forth. You're like, oh, okay, cool. Great. And I'm like, and then I'm like, why is his response like that? And you're like, dude, to be honest, if they're not like first or second rounders, like we just don't have the time like for that. Like, right. Like not in a sense, in a bad sense, but it gave me, and then you broke down like the investment of an athlete when you sign that athlete, and that you're not getting that the return on that athlete, probably, hopefully, if he ever reaches free agency or reaches the big leagues, whatever like that. But the investment, the constant investment of having to cleats, gloves, et cetera, can you describe that for the people that might not know what goes into how much money you guys actually put into the athlete and just the fueling their success?
Yeah, so I would say honestly, in response to that, it's more so comes from a fact of like I think recruiting is a huge part of this job. Signing players is obviously a really big part of this job, but that's never my first reaction. Like I am constantly thinking of, what is the best decisions that these people can make. And I would help anyone with that. Like I'll give that information away for free, like if anybody just needs help with like how I see the world, or like just like 30,000 foot view, getting drafted versus going to college, all that stuff. Like I would gladly talk to anyone about that. But I am so focused on making sure that the people that we recruit, or the people that we represent, like that I am a representative, like I am a fiduciary for these people's careers and decisions. And I don't always want, like, being in recruiting brain, I want to like avoid that as much as I can. It's just typically not my first reaction, but that fits into our structure a little bit where, like, dude, these time period from an agent's perspective, these time periods of like your return on your investment essentially for these players is really long. You know, if you work with a kid through the draft, I mean, a real payout for you where you can like pay bills essentially is like really not until arbitration. And if they spend 3 years in the minor leagues, which is really good. Like if you get into the big leagues after 3 years in the minor leagues, like that's fantastic. But then you're not, you know, you're 3 years away from arbitration. And right there is half a decade before you as an agent have seen any sort of return. Right. Which, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, it is the way our system currently works. So we try to make sure that we're very particular. I just want to make sure any player I work with or any person I'm recruiting like really understands that I have like a value add to their career and to their life. And there's like a reason why I'm talking to them or working with them. And it's not just the allure of like constantly feeling like you're recruiting and signing players. Like we were talking about kind of like the highs and lows of working in our industry. One of those highs is signing a player. Like recruiting is really fun. Like it's an adrenaline rush of being able to get someone to be like, hey, like I will trust you with my career. Okay, that can be addicting. And you have to avoid, I personally a little bit have to avoid like, hey, am I just chasing, I just want to get like kind of the high a little bit of saying I signed a new player or brought someone in, or is this person, are they actually going to get something from me outside of just saying they have an agent? So I don't know, there's just, that's really it is, and some of this I may be in my head a little bit too much. Like I feel like maybe I could use a little bit of like, bro, just go sign a bunch of players. Like, what are you talking about? Like just, but I don't know. I like the structure that we have, and you know, I just try to make sure, you know, I do the best I can for these guys in that way. Yeah.
When do you first like pinpoint a player? Is it junior high school, high school? Like when does a player hop onto you guys' radar, like at Tidal Sports?
For us right now, I think we're probably a little bit either like a first or second round type talent where we probably have some sort of connection with the player and like the recruitment process is pretty easy, or we're looking for, you know, major league talent who we think are maybe being a little underrepresented, or some sort of situation where, again, I feel like I have something like very particular to offer to a player. So, I mean, time frame is just, can kind of be all over the place, but mostly it's, hey, here's what we do really well as an agency, and here's our values, here's how we operate. Hey, I think this player can use that. And wherever they're at in their career, draft, minor leagues, major leagues, I'm probably going to pursue that pretty strongly if I think I have something to add.
We talked a little bit over, we touched on sort of the Mitch Keller deal earlier. What's that process like when you're getting down to like the final moments of hey, we're about to get this deal done? Like, what is it a lot of talk back and forth? Is there like, what gives you the feeling that, okay, we're going to get this done?
Man, that was a really long process. You know, and shout out to the Pirates as well. Ben Sherrington, like getting that deal done. I know that it took a lot of energy on their end to like finalize the exact structure of that deal as well. But yeah, I mean, just a lot of time on the phone, a lot of effort on our end, communicating to the club the value that they're going to get for that particular player, and then making sure our, you know, Mitch understood every step of the way, right? Like what this means for him personally, and then what this means for him going forward, and the advantages for doing something like this, and maybe some of the disadvantages for signing that extension. But at the end of the day, like it was something Mitch really wanted, and we were really happy with it. And, you know, Pittsburgh should be really happy as well. I know he's happy to be there, but it's just really, really long process. Yeah. Sure. I mean, you're pretty much on the phone like working through stuff every single day for a good amount of hours. Yeah.
And then on the value perspective, we've had a lot of talk about value over the last couple of years, obviously with Kevin Gausman with the Red Sox, and then ends up with the Blue Jays. How do you get? Is there ever a time where you come to the table, and you specifically, or have come to the table, and then your value is completely different from how the team sees it?
Yeah, absolutely. We've had, this, yes, we've had offers in the world of free agency where, you see a particular number and you're just kind of shocked by it. You're communicating with a potential GM, an actual GM, where you're just like, where the hell are you getting these valuations, man? Like, I don't know if you're living in another planet or if we are, which can be tough sometimes. Like a lot of this too is for players. Like when they see something like that, it can be a bit of a, hurts their ego a little bit, which, I understand. Ultimately, it gives them a bit of a motivation to play better, work harder, however you want to say it. But yeah, usually like the offers can be way off. But a lot of it's just like our job to make sure that we're communicating and presenting evidence and talking to these organizations of why, our valuations we think are a little bit more accurate to this potential player. And so far, I think we've done a really good job of that with outcomes that we've had. So
does that kill the deal though at all? Like, does that kill like the negotiations if you guys are on one side and they're on another, or is there some way that you can, that the hope that you guys can bridge that gap? Like, how do you do that when you're just, complete opposite sides of the spectrum?
I'm not really particularly concerned with that, if, and I don't mean to sound like an ass saying that, but if I have a valuation on a player and they're 30-40% off, deal's not going to get done. Sorry, no disrespect. Like, you have your valuations, I have mine. Like, we'll try to approach this at another day, or try again. I don't think I really try to make sure that, again, like I try to put my ego aside on these things and make sure that even in those negotiations that, I'm not taking offense to anything that they're saying, and I'm communicating in a very calm and like, I'm making sure these people understand my reasoning so they don't have an excuse to say no, or be like, hey, you didn't let us know how you were feeling or why you came to a particular conclusion. So yeah, if our valuations are far off, like, pound sand in a way, I don't really care. Like, it is what it is. And I think most importantly, it's communicating to your client, like, hey, here's why we have this particular number, and here's why their number is wrong, so yeah.
Last couple questions. There's obviously been a lot of talk about Juan Soto, but there's also been a lot of talk about the Dodgers as well, and the money deferrals, right? I'm curious, what are your thoughts on money being deferred as a sort of this, I wouldn't say as a competitive advantage that to build the best team?
Hard to say in my opinion, hard to say it's a competitive advantage when every club has the opportunity to structure deals in a similar way.
Fair.
I don't believe, the Dodgers have unlocked some like mechanism that no one knew about. Like, there's been deferrals in a bunch of contracts. Yeah, that's really my opinion on it. I don't particularly care. Like, every team can do this. So good on the Dodgers to, create a system where, I don't know, dude, the Dodgers are great, man. Like, they've also just won a World Series, and they're creating an environment and an organization where people want to play for them. Obviously. So I think that probably should be maybe a talking point. It's not that no one's ever said that, but that's probably what I pay more attention to on this. Yeah. I will say, like, I'm happy to see, I don't know, I feel like the past like decade has kind of been this push and pull between the consultant class that's invaded like front offices versus baseball guys who like just want to go out and compete and win. And I like some of it you need, but I think we're starting to see hopefully a bit of like a balance of understanding, like we don't need to, as an organization, constantly chase some dollar per war excess value metric. Like, hey, sometimes this is just a really good player and we want to win, like let's just go sign them. And obviously you want to be reasonable with that, but I think we're starting to kind of get back into this world a little bit where we're not like, where organizations aren't so obsessed with like that excess value kind of like quant notion of a contract. So
I mean, it's I mean, for me, like, and that was going to be actually my next question, or my last question was like, but for me, it's the entertainment value of the sport, and I think we've talked about that as well. It's like, okay, yeah, he's a 5-1 player, but like, yes, and you can get 2 players to match up to this guy who's a 5-1 player.
Build them in the aggregate,
Why not just go out and get the guy, right? Like, like I see with the Red Sox a lot, and obviously they're trying to fill this up, but like since Dustin Pedroia, they haven't had like a everyday second baseman, right? That's just been a black hole for them, and you see them. I called them last year, like I said, they were like the platoon crew, like they were just platooning players all around, and then you have your manager literally like when there was an opener in Houston, I think Cora like came out and like pinch hit for a lefty because pinch hit for a righty because or pinch hit for a lefty because a lefty came on the mound in the second inning, right? And so it's like that drives down the entertainment value, I think, of the sport. We can talk about this day, even the fact of like them trying to the Mets trying to sign, I guess, Clay Holmes as a starter. That's sort of devaluing this Mitch Keller guys, right? The guys who actually do the job, because they're saying, if I can turn this guy into have him do your job, and he's a reliever, what does that say about the actual value? What's the actual value of the starter, in my opinion? But like again, I'm getting off a little off topic, but I think the value piece of these teams always just constantly just trying to win the deal instead of just trying to win on the field has sort of devalued the game in a sense and taken away the entertainment. So I'm happy that you have teams like the Dodgers. I'm happy you have owners like Steve Cohen and what the Padres are doing out there. Like those are entertaining ball clubs that you want to watch. Like that Dodgers Padres series for me was the World Series, right? Like because
awesome. It was a great series. Yeah,
it was just star after star after star, and like that's what you want to see in this game. And I think to hit on your point, I just hope we get back to that.
No, I agree. I think you said it really well. And I actually, totally agree that when I say like the consultant class takeover, I think there's been a bit of an obsession with winning contracts. Hey, we're getting more value out of this contract on like a monetary basis than the production that we're getting on the field. And what you're saying is, hey, there's a 1% segment of like baseball fandom, me, who pays attention to that. Maybe like a couple other guys. Really, people just want to see like stars. They want to see players that they know on the field win ball games. And I hope, I think the Dodgers obviously have done a fantastic job of this, of just, hey, we are trying to win World Series, which should be like kind of the goal of every organization, I would hope. We're not just trying to win contracts per se. So yeah, I agree with you.
Well, Brent, I thank you for joining me, man. I think, obviously you have a great story to tell, and it's been over a year. I've been trying to get you on this thing, and I'm glad you finally decided to do it. I think in all seriousness, I think like you have a great story to tell, and obviously, people can lean on you for advice and stuff like that, but I'm glad now this is out in the open so people can see, this other side of you and all the talent, knowledge that you have, because I truly feel there's a space for your voice, on some platform. So I definitely appreciate you joining me today.
Thank you, man. Hey, congratulations on the news that you told me the other day. I don't know.
Yes. I'm having a little boy, and Brent's gonna
let's go.
Brent's gonna be the white uncle. So I'm setting that up because I don't know if he's gonna be a first or second rounder, So I'm gonna be like, hey, Brent, can you just do me a solid and just
Oh
take it
man,
on,
we're gonna be talking about, hey, at 9 years old, man, like which T-ball team should he be on? What training regimen do we, is he going to driveline? Is he going to tread athletics? Maybe we send him down to IMG in Florida. Maybe that may be the best situation. I don't know. We got a lot of stuff we got to talk about here.
Exactly, man. Exactly. Well, thanks, man. I love you, brother. Thanks for coming on.
Good stuff. Yeah, I
All
appreciate you, man. Bye.
Yes, sir.